Hello and welcome to the Bible in Business. I'm Bill English, the founder of Bible in Business. Today I want to talk about the emotional price that business owners pay when their business is failing. Now, this might not seem like a very uplifting topic, but remember I have several different types of broadcasts or videocasts or episodes or whatever you want to call them out at my YouTube channel at Bible and Business, and one of them is titled Running Your Business. And this really fits more into that category rather than leadership lessons or essential stewardship studies of theology about what God has said to us as business owners about stewarding our business. I'm going to be putting together a number of broadcasts about how to run your business, but I'm going to start with the negative side of business, which is what happens when a business fails and what happens to a business owner when his or her business starts to fail. And this is a presentation I did at least 5 years ago at the Minnesota Psychological Convention. It was the statewide convention for psychologists, and this is the presentation that I did. When businesses start to fail, business owners pay a huge but very quiet emotional price, and their families pay it with them. And this is like one of those really quiet things that happens, and it's happening all around us, and yet nobody really knows how to talk about it. So if your business is not doing well, or if you know of a business that isn't doing well, please have them take a look at this video as soon as you can, because there is help available if the business owner will simply reach out and ask for it. So let me dive into this whole presentation with you, and let's learn together about what happens to business owners privately when their business is failing. Okay, I guess I got to click on this over here. There we go. And so I'm going to go over my own story, and then we're going to cover some of the basic indications of a business failure. And what are some of the owner characteristics? What happens to their emotions and their demeanor? And then actually I'm going to talk a little bit about some clinical things that business owners may be facing from a psychological perspective, and then what we can and should do to help the business owner recover their business and really recover their life. So my story is very simple. I started a training company in 2003 that focused on SharePoint. And in 5 years, that company went from $0 to $9 million with 65 employees and contractors. But in 2009, during that great recession, we had such a huge contraction that on a prorated basis, in 6 months, we lost $4.5 million in revenue and ended the year with 18 employees and contractors with about $4 million of prorated annual revenue. I also went through and fired the entire management team, which was a very, very painful thing to do. But from that, I learned that I could successfully lead my company through a deep turnaround, because in 2010, we got back to profitability and we emerged on the other side of that. Out of that experience, I learned some undeniable truths. The first one is this: nearly every small business owner will face a constriction of their business at one time or another. And this is something that when you start to look at the literature, like at Harvard Business Review or Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal or other things like journals from MIT or maybe Princeton or Yale or Stanford, those kinds of top business schools, very rarely will they talk about how to downsize your business or talk about how to notice when your business is going into a constriction and what you should do about it. But yet every business owner not only faces spurts of growth, but they also face spurts of what I'm calling constriction or downsizing, as it were. And every business owner is going to face this at one time or another. So you need to be able to downsize. Your ability to downsize your business is going to be just as important as the ability to grow your business. You can grow your business all day long. For 10 years, you can grow your business, and you can lose it in 1 year if you don't know how to downsize properly. Now, look, we have a recession every 7 to 10 years. Since 1960, there's plenty of articles out there at the Wall Street Journal and other places which show that recessions, on average, happen every 7 to 10 years. Now, the triggers for those recessions are different each time. And, of course, both political parties use it to try to each recession to try to beat up the other one. But the reality is, cyclically, we're going to have a recession probably every 7 to 10 years. And what we need to understand is that the ability to downsize ahead of a recession or to get ready for a recession when you see it coming is one of the core skills that a small business owner needs in order to survive. Now, look, most business owners, another truth here is that they're really competent at something, but they're usually not highly competent at the business side of their business. And yet, because they're so good at what they do, they tend to be pretty arrogant, or at least somewhat arrogant, about their abilities on the business side of their business. And so when you try to come alongside them and help them, you'll find that they're actually pretty stubborn people. And they're stubborn in a sense of, I'm so talented at this science over here, or making this widget over here, or developing this service over here, that they don't have the humility to say, I need help on the business side of my business. And sometimes, even if they are humble enough to say I need help, a lot of times they're not willing to pay for it. They just don't want to put out the money for it. Another truth is that family and individual dysfunction will be imported into your business, but the results of your personal dysfunction and your family dysfunction will be seen as a business problem rather than a personal or family problem. So if you're part of a family business and your family is highly dysfunctional or even moderately dysfunctional, that's going to get imprinted onto the business, and the results of that are not going to be favorable for your business. Look, here's some statistics. 68% of all businesses are family-owned, give or take. Some say 70, some say 60, some say 80. I landed there at 68%. And there's 5.8 million businesses in the United States with 100 or fewer employees. These are numbers from the Census Bureau at census.gov. And yet these businesses account for nearly 50% of our nation's payroll. Now, that statistic is actually, you got to include the businesses that go up to 500 employees. There's about 100,000, 110,000 businesses in the United States that have between 100 and 500 employees. There's only 20,000 that have over 500 employees. And so the businesses with 500 or fewer employees account for about 50% of our nation's payroll. And they will generate 65% of all the new jobs. New businesses starting out, 50% will go out of business in 5 years, 90% will go out in 10 years. And over 500,000 new businesses are started every month. And research is needed to evaluate the effects of family dysfunction on family-owned businesses. I don't know of any graduate or PhD programs that do this. We don't have, to my knowledge, any master's or PhD level programs that study family businesses as the focus of the program. We just don't. If they exist, I don't know about them. So let me go over some indications of when your business is getting ready to fail. First of all, early indications. This is early stage indications, and at this point, if these are characteristics of your business, it should not be hard to save or improve your business. First of all, a drop in revenue without a commensurate drop in expenses. So if your expenses have stayed here and your revenue has come down, that's an early indication. Okay. If your owners give an unplanned cash infusion into the business, so if you're an owner and the business suddenly needed $75,000 and you had to go to your bank account to get it, and you can't really explain why you had to put that money in, or you didn't know that you were going to have to put that money in, say a month ago, then that's an early indication that something's going wrong in your business. If you're starting to have persistent conflict at the ownership level or with key employees, that's an early indication that something's going wrong with your business. If you don't know your cash break even, and every business owner I've ever worked with does not know their cash break even, or if you don't manage your cash with a forecasting tool, every business that I've ever worked with does not, or so far every business I've ever worked with except one, has not had any visibility into the future about where their cash is going to be. And at Platinum, where I'm a partner, we do 13-week cash flow forecasts religiously with every business we work with, and it really improves their operations. So these are early indications that your business is headed into the turnaround, into the distressed area, but these are things that should not be hard to change, and your business should not be hard to improve. But it gets worse. Serious indications. Now our window of opportunity to save your business is closing, and it might be closing fast. If you have high interest credit sources, maybe the bank has squeezed your credit line, and now they're requiring you to pay 2 or 3 or 5 points more than what you were paying before. That shows that you're at greater risk. If your revenue or customer concentrations are out of balance, maybe for 100% of your revenue that's coming in on an annual basis, 40% of it comes from one customer. That would be a revenue customer concentration that's out of balance. If your P&L is showing profits but you have no cash, that means that you're profitable on an accrual basis, but you're not managing your cash very well. That's a serious indication that something is wrong. If key employees, your top talent, is starting to leave and go to competitors, or has left and gone to competitors, or has left and set up competitive businesses, that's a real indication that something's very, very wrong in your business. If you, as the owner, are starting to take less than your full salary, that shows that your business is very distressed. And if your product and service lines are stale and outdated, that's a serious indication. Plus, if they're outdated and they're stale and you don't have any cash to shore them up or to freshen them up or to make them competitive in today's market, that's a real indication that something's very, very wrong and you need help pretty quick. Now, critical indications, these are indications that the business is not going to be saved. It will head into bankruptcy without serious, immediate intervention. And by immediate, I mean within days, if not hours. First of all, you're unable to make payroll. You've got payroll on Friday, and let's say today is Wednesday, and your payroll is $250,000, and you've got $47,000. And you don't know how you're going to make payroll. Or if you are making your net payroll, but you're not paying your payroll taxes, that's a huge indication that something is very, very wrong, and your business is going to go bankrupt very soon. If most of your vendors are stretched beyond 90 days and they're starting to turn off services to you, that's a huge indication that you need immediate action in your business. If you as an owner are not taking any salaries, maybe you haven't taken a salary for 2 months, that's another indication that things are very, very wrong and you need to shore that up. If banks are calling your loans, they're foreclosing on your assets, that's a strong indication that you are within hours of bankruptcy and you need some help right away. And of course, this is a little self-serving for me to say, but it's true. This is what we do at the Platinum Group. We do turnarounds, and we often get called in during these critical situations to save the business. And I think we're pretty good at it. We can't save all of them, but we save a lot of them. So in the midst of all this, what's the owner like? Well, here's some owner characteristics. They're usually very good at something, and they're usually very crazy smart, crazy talented, and they don't mind assuming risk, right? But they generalize their abilities in that specialized area that has caused the business to be developed in the first place. Maybe they know a science, maybe they know how to craft a piece of metal, maybe they're good at manufacturing something, whatever it means. But they generalize that to say, I'm also good at running the business side of the business. And really, what we find is that they're not. It isn't that they're dumb people. They're not. They're very smart, highly talented people, but they just don't get the business side of their business. And they would be very smart if they brought somebody in who did, who really focuses on that side of the business. They're usually not good at conflict resolution. They're usually not good at hiring or firing well. They're usually not good at leadership. A lot of these crazy smart, highly talented people aren't leaders. They're good at what they do, but they're not leaders. And they usually assume that they can fix the problem with the next sale. And they're almost always we shut down a failing business because it's too late. The owners call us when it's too late, and it's really a sad thing. I'll say one other characteristic that isn't on here is that they usually think they are right and everybody else is wrong. And these kinds of people, they can be very difficult to work with, very, very difficult to work with. And it's because they're so smart and it's because they're so talented that they also become difficult to work with. Other characteristics, especially if they're Christians, they'll have a strong sense of moral obligation to pay the vendors fully. So they hang on to a tepid or stale business, hoping things will change so that if they can get everybody paid fully. And their job becomes wrapped up with ownership. They really can't quit. Remember, owners can't quit. They can only die, liquidate, or sell, but owners cannot quit. And so they hang on because they don't know what else to do. And they don't know what else they would do if they didn't have their business. So real entrepreneurs have a really hard time working for somebody else. And so to them, this hanging on thing where the business is just barely making it, it's surviving, but it's not thriving, is really one of the worst possible lifestyles that you can wish on a person. Emotionally, they don't do well. This is Jeff Marcus, who's the founder of Daddy-O's Pasta in Toronto. This is a quote from him. I was a go-getter and an entrepreneur, but as my business slowed, I was more and more affected. I couldn't separate myself from my business. It was the worst experience of my life. It put a strain on my marriage, and I missed out on seeing my daughter grow up, which was very difficult for me. One of the first things they do, business owners, is that they repress. They'll have a calm demeanor, but they'll mask their really highly negative and really highly charged negative secret emotions. They have to remain optimistic on the outside and upbeat while trying to manage the emotional deterioration behind the scenes. Relief through repression and compartmentalization. They will often start to compartmentalize their lives, and all this stress has to get, the steam's got to go somewhere, and they got to let off and vent somewhere. And a lot of times that comes in the form of addictions, whether it's drinking or sex or spending or workaholism, whatever it is, they got to let that stress out somehow. And they'll often compartmentalize their relationships too. So they'll start to lie to their spouse. They'll start to deceive their spouse as a method of protecting their spouse from the truth. And that leads to extra energy and extra cycles every day trying to remember, what did I say to my spouse, and trying to convince the spouse that everything is okay, or convince their kids that everything is okay, or convince their partners that everything is okay, when in reality it's not. This leads to some delicate conversations, like how much should you share with your spouse? How much detail should you share with your spouse about your business? Some believe that you don't share much. Others believe you share everything. But what does your husband and wife know? What do your kids know? What do your partners know? What do your best friends know? There's a number of business owners that will compartmentalize to the point where they tell their spouse some things and their best friend other things and their accountant other things and their lawyers other things, but no one person knows the whole story except them. And that's a really, really dangerous place to be. A very dangerous place to be. There's also a lot of shame with admitting that your business is failing. It's accounting to admitting that you're a failure as a person. And the admission is going to be both public and private. And it's really tough when you look at this thing and you say, my best wasn't good enough. It isn't that business owners don't give their best. They do. They put everything into this business that they possibly can. But the reality is that sometimes their best just isn't good enough. And that's a huge point of shame and a huge point of, boy, they really wish that they had some other way to manage that. And yet the shame is going to be there and they have to deal with that. Failure is a very difficult thing to face. In fact, I would say that failure is one of the most difficult things you'll ever face in life. There's also the professional humiliation. When we fail in our profession, we're going to feel drained, embarrassed, insignificant, unimportant, empty, discouraged, disheartened, unneeded, and the list can just go on and on and on. You'll feel tired. You'll feel drained is really the first word there. You're going to feel all these things and other emotions when others in your industry find out that your business has failed. So clinically, what can happen from a psychological perspective? This is where I kind of put on my psychologist hat a little bit. Yes, I am a licensed psychologist in the state of Minnesota, and I have done 15,000, give or take, hours of marriage and family therapy, and I diagnosed people for 9 years. And so what are some clinical considerations here? Well, the onset of the triggering event, it can be traumatic and highly stressful. Maybe you did have too much of a customer concentration and you lost your big customer, and that can become a very traumatic event. And so you have what is called an acute onset, less than 1 month or less. And you suddenly find out that you've just lost 40% of your revenue, or you suddenly learn that your controller has been giving you false reports and that you're actually $750,000 in debt on $3.5 million of sales instead of chugging along at $50,000 to $80,000 of profit every month. Or maybe your partner has been diagnosed with a terminal illness and you have no succession plan. Or maybe you're the one that has been diagnosed with a terminal illness and you only have months to live and you have no succession plan. So those kind of acute traumatic triggering events can really cause some clinical issues to pop up. Now, an insidious onset is one where it happens gradually over time. Maybe the bank is slowly squeezing your borrowing availability. Or maybe key employees are coming to you one at a time and saying, I'm not going to stay here. This is no longer a good place for me to be. Or maybe you're losing market share as competitors take your core customer base because, frankly, they're doing it better than you. And you just don't have the energy or the financial muscle to fight back. Those kinds of insidious onsets can take months, sometimes even years. You're likely to experience clinical anxiety, where you have racing thoughts and you're unable to control your worry. You'll feel despair and this dark cloud of utter destruction that always occurs at the end of your ruminations. No matter how you try to think through how to solve your problems, the end is, I'm ruined. You might wake up with panic attacks at night. I call it entrepreneurial terror, where you wake up and you're not having a physical panic attack, but you're having an emotional and mental panic attack. And you realize that there is no way out. You're going to fail, and everybody's going to know about it. And what will you do then? no one's going to trust you. No one's going to want to be with you. No one's going to want to do business with you. And all you see at the end of that tunnel is a train that's going to hit you at 100 miles an hour. You're going to have elevated levels of anxiety. Maybe your hands will shake a little bit. Maybe you'll feel jumpy or just unsettled all the time. Your memory and concentration may go by the wayside there, and you start to live with this constant fear and a complete inability to relax. No matter what you're doing now to try to relax, you feel like you always should be someplace else doing something more important. Generalized anxiety disorder is one diagnosis. Maybe panic disorder is another. Less likely are social anxieties or maybe the development of specific phobias. But you may end up having a little bit of ADD-ishness, attention deficit disorder-ishness. And you might often change core duties for personnel as you try to plug the holes as people are leaving. And maybe you find yourself constantly calling banks to try to find new money and nobody will give you the money. Maybe you spend hours looking at accounts payable, trying to figure out who to pay, who not to pay, and never fully deciding who to pay and who not to pay, but you can't get away from the fact that you need to pay everybody and you don't have enough money and you don't have anybody to talk to about it. And so you have this constant anxiety. That often leads to mood disorders, so a loss of interest. These are characteristics of either major depression or what we used to call dysthymia, but it's more of this low-grade depression that just stays with you over a long period of time. You might have a loss of interest in daily activities that you once found fun. You might have these constant feelings of emptiness or hopelessness with a lack of energy or this constant irritability. Sometimes you'll have excessive anger that just kind of explodes. And you find yourself working harder and harder to achieve less and less. And so your productivity is constantly and iteratively and insidiously, if I can use that word, decreasing. You'll find yourself starting to eat more and more, so you gain weight, and then you don't feel good about yourself. Your clothes don't fit, and your sleep, if you can get 6 hours in a night of regular sleep, that's pretty good. A lot of times you're waking up at 2 or 3 with racing thoughts and your mind can't stop. And this is not a good place for you to be. Most likely you have some kind of a depressive disorder there. And frankly, medications can help. I'm not ashamed to say that I was on medications for a while when my business was failing. And it really helped me turn around emotionally and gave me the ability to concentrate and focus so that I could do the things I needed to do to turn my business around. But the number one thing you need is somebody to walk along beside you who really understands where you've been, but is detached enough that they can take action on your behalf to fix the problems. Somebody who's been there and done that. Somebody who knows how to do turnarounds. That's what you need in your life. You cannot do this alone. If you try to do this alone, the chances are very good that you're going to fail. You need somebody to come in and help you. And that's, of course, what we do at the Platinum Group. Other stress considerations, you probably have a decreased range of emotions with decreased emotional responsiveness. You might, in some more extreme situations, find yourself dissociating. You literally find yourself floating in the air and you're watching yourself interact with other people. Maybe some kind of an acute stress disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder can happen. You may have a distorted sense of blame on yourself or on others. If so-and-so had only done this, I wouldn't be here. Or if I had only done this, this wouldn't have happened. And you do the woulda, shoulda, couldas, and you can't get out of that rut. You can't get out of that cycle. Boy, that's very stressful, and that's another indication that clinically, psychologically, something's going on. In order to get some level of control or sanity, you may decide to get divorced or make other personal decisions quickly and probably irrationally. And you may find yourself violating your values just to maintain your facade. Uh, you don't want to do that. Private addictions will help you find relief temporarily, but they will eventually eat away at you because of the constant stress and the worry. You might find yourself lying way too much to your spouse or cheating on your taxes. You may find yourself having an affair as your outlet for your stress, or you may just become very, very apathetic towards everything in life. Point is, your relationships are going to suffer if you don't take care of yourself and if you don't take care of your business in some form or fashion. So, who gets affected when you're becoming emotionally drained and your business is going downhill? Well, everybody. The employees, your family, your customers, your vendors, your partners, the community, and yourself. And I'm not putting yourself above anybody else or anybody else above yourself. Everybody is equally affected. Some are indirectly affected, but everybody is affected. Maybe not equally. I'll take that statement back. But maybe not equally, but certainly everybody is affected. So, what can you do and what should you do? Psychotherapy alone, just going and seeing a psychologist, is going to have minimal effects. You can try some medications and some psychotherapy, but you're going to need a support system. And here's where I would suggest joining a CEO group. On your family unit, you may have to get some counseling for you and your wife or you and your husband, but you're going to need to develop some work-life balance here. You've got to have balance in order to have the energy to face the difficult problems that you're going to be facing. And if the love has gone out of your marriage, then you need to have that love restored. If this is a family business and the love has gone out of your family, then that love needs to be restored. It's really important that that happen. But you also need to look at assessing for your different roles and treating the business as an individual. I like this concept. So as the business owner, you got to take a look at yourself. What are you really good at and what are your derailers? And this is where I can help you personally because I assess leaders for these very kinds of things. You're going to want to build alliances. You're going to want somebody in there to walk this path, this lonely path with you. And chances are you have conflict somewhere in your life, and that's got to be managed and resolved. And you're going to have a long-term transition plan. Even if the plan is 10 years, you still need to start developing how you're going to get out of this business and how are you going to make it healthy today, but how are you going to get out of it in the long term. In the business itself, you're going to want to know what your cash break even is, and you're going to want to manage cash very tightly. It does not matter as much what your accrual-based profit and loss statement tells you as what your cash flow statement tells you. You probably want to do a liquidation analysis. If you did have to go out of business, how would you liquidate and who would get what monies? But if you want to try to make this thing work, then we need to make sure we have the right people in the right seats. We have to improve operational efficiencies. We have to take a look at an EBITDA analysis and go through. And what Platinum does is we interview almost all of the employees in the company, unless it's 500 people, then we don't do that. But if there's 40, 50 people in the company, we'll try to interview them all and get a very good idea as to what's going on in the company, and then come back with a go-forward action plan that we present to you, the owner, that we think will solve your problems. And literally it is, here's what we would do if we were you and we owned this business. And we've done this, I would say, for well over 500 businesses, and we've been successful in the majority of them, turning them around and making them profitable again. So, can you develop hope? The emotional price that business owners pay when their business is failing, one of the big things is they start to lose hope. How do you get hope back? Because with proper assessments and realistic solutions, you can start to have hope. But you're not going to come up with those proper assessments and those realistic solutions on your own. You're just not. You need somebody to walk with you. And that's where we can really help you at Platinum. You're going to need to manage your cash better. I don't care how well you think you're doing at it, you're going to need to manage your cash better. And you're going to need to have a better business management structure. You're going to need better product and service lines, probably a better culture. And on the personal side, you're going to need to build love back into your family relationships, and you're going to need to create a work-life balance so that you can have the love in your relationships and you can live consistently within your values. If you do the things on this slide and you have somebody that walks with you for a period of time from the outside who's been there and done that in other situations and will know how to do it with yours, then I think what you'll find is that you'll be re-energized, rejuvenated, your business will be rebirthed, and you can find yourself hitting on all 8 cylinders again. So this is why you can have hope for the future. So even though the emotional price that business owners pay is quite high when their business is failing, it can be turned around and they can have hope for the future, but they have to reach out and ask for that help. Listen, I'm Bill English. I'm the founder here at Bible and Business, but I'm also a partner at the Platinum Group. And if I can be of any help to you at any time, just email me at bill@bibleandbusiness.com and I'll respond. And any consulting that I do runs through the Platinum Group. I don't do anything apart from the Platinum Group. So don't expect me to say, yeah, I'll take this on at a lower cost directly and I won't tell anybody at Platinum. That's not how this works. Besides, Platinum is a group of about 20 consultants, crazy smart, highly talented, incredibly experienced people. And there's hardly a situation that we have not seen in the past, so somebody at Platinum hasn't seen in the past. And we can bring that experience to bear on your business. And we can provide hope and confidence that in the future, if you do what we tell you to do, that you will be successful. So thank you for listening today, and thank you for visiting Bible and Business. If you want to know more about Bible and Business, I have a video on the YouTube channel there that just kind of does an introduction to Bible and Business and myself. I'd invite you to watch that and get a little bit better acquainted with me. But I want to thank you for watching today, and I hope you have a good day. Take care.